Hi everybody, my name is Greg Anderson, and for the past 17 years, maybe 18 by now, I've been using some form of traveling sprinkler, and I really like them. I started out with the Nelson Rain Train, and as you see this one here, you might be thinking, hey, where'd you get a white one? I repainted it. The original paint job didn't last very well. But otherwise, it's just, the Nelson Rain Train. Then there's the Orbit version, which mechanically, the gearbox and a lot of the pieces look like exactly the same thing. The front end of it, the big metal part of it, is a little different. But other than that, I basically consider these to be the same thing. But this year, I've decided to start the season with the one that I've been thinking about for a long time. It costs more, but I think in some ways you get what you pay for. This is the National Walking Sprinkler, this particular model, the A52. So they make these in Nebraska, good Midwestern common sense engineering going into this one. And it's almost entirely metal, just a little plastic piece on the bottom and maybe a few pieces that are kind of rubber and plastic deep within, just kind of washers and gaskets and that sort of thing. But the main part of it, almost entirely metal, built to last. This is really considered something that will last decades and decades and decades with proper maintenance, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. So this kind of is the pinnacle of what I wanted in a traveling sprinkler. Now, I've proven the concept of traveling sprinkler to myself. This is something that you set it up, and then you turn on the water and it moves around as it waters. So you can water larger sections of the lawn than you would, say, with something like this. This you might leave it on for half an hour and then have to move it to another part of the lawn, and then half an hour later move it again with one of these kind of rainbird style sprinklers. But with these traveling sprinklers, you make a trail for this to follow by simply the placement of the hose. So the hose kind of acts as a monorail, and this will follow the path from start to finish, and slowly moving as it goes. And as this is turning, this is the mechanism that drives the sprinkler. So let's take something like this, for example. When you turn this on, it's the spray of the water that is actually causing something mechanical to happen. And so this kind of moves around and maybe makes a quarter circle, half circle, however you've set this to go, maybe a full circle. So it's the spray of the water that causes the movement for this. And with this walking sprinkler, it's the same concept. It's the spray of the water that makes it move. So as the water comes out of these nozzles, it causes this arm to spin the opposite direction of where the water is flowing. So I've got two of them. It's a balanced thing. And so as this spins like this, okay, this is the top of a shaft, and that shaft is rotating, and there's kind of a threaded, screw design on this shaft, which then interacts with this main gear. So as this is turning, this main gear is turning. And as this main gear here is turning, it's causing these little connectors to kind of pivot back and forth. And as they go back and forth, it drags, this is called a pawl, P-A-W-L. It drags this back and forth so it catches the teeth on this wheel. And there's one on either side. So as it catches that tooth, it's going to cause it to rotate the wheel a little bit. And then when the other one engages, it will rotate the other wheel. It's a solid axle between these two wheels. And so as these two little brackets on either side are going back and forth, it's slowly causing the wheels to rotate. And then the entire traveling sprinkler will move forward along the path of the hose that you've put down. So with these others, I've proven that I like that. I can pick a large area of the lawn and just turn on the sprinkler for a few hours and just let it go. And they'll drag, maybe up to 100 feet of hose. This one is rated for even more than that. I think this one will go up to like 200 feet of hose. So you could really let it just turn it on all night perhaps. But they do recommend that you have some sort of shut-off timer for this so that it doesn't just keep going and going until you run out of hose. So it's pretty easy to get these. You can find these at the big box stores. Maybe $25, $30, depending on where you shop. Maybe some places will have them for more than that. But These are pretty good. You know, you might have to replace one of these every few years, but I found that a combination of this and these traveling sprinklers has worked out pretty well for me as far as a way to water large areas of the lawn without having to continually monitor what's going on and go out and adjust things. All you do is set down the hose and watch it go. Now, when you first get it, you might want to keep a close eye on it and get a kind of a feel for what it's capable of. In some of the illustrations, they show that you can lay the hose down and, you know, have it kind of follow a path and do some curves and stuff. And I found that your performance is better if you're really thinking about straight lines. You don't want to. You can do it maybe a gentle curve, but you don't want to do any sharp curves in here because, you know, it just has a hard time handling that kind of, you know, this is not a race car, right? So if this does get off the track, as it were, you never know what direction it'll go in. And one of the disadvantages of these with the more of the plastic parts on them is that if this were to go off the track and run into something like a retaining wall or a rock or something so that it's unable to move forward while this is still spinning, then you know, obviously this part is not going to move forward anymore, but these wheels are going to continue to move, and so you can guess what that's going to do. It's going to cause this to kind of dig some ruts down into your grass. And with this, with the strong metal mechanism, that's probably just going to damage your grass until you finally, you know, pay attention and go turn off the water. But with these other ones, that added stress of it's not moving forward, but it's digging down into the soil or the grass, that's going to put some stress on the internal mechanism inside this gearbox, and almost everything in there is made of plastic. And so those plastic gears can get brittle and can be stripped, and in that case, there's really nothing you can do. You may be able to order a new gearbox. I've had different experiences with ordering a new gearbox when they've failed on these. Sometimes I've paid maybe $25 for a gearbox. Sometimes I've gotten them for free. Kind of depends on what the company is offering at that time of that particular season. But, you know, wouldn't it be better if you just never have to replace a gearbox because something like this is just made tougher? Now, you can replace parts on the National Walking Sprinkler models, and what I like about it is you can see every part. You can see all the mechanical stuff that's there. And so if anything were to happen to one of these parts, which is very unlikely unless like you drop it off of you know, the back of your truck or something, you can see what part is maybe needs to be replaced. They've got a website where you can see all those parts and you can order a part. And because you can see it so well here on the sprinkler, I think it's got to be fairly easy to replace a part because you can see exactly what you're doing. So I haven't had that experience yet. This is the beginning of the season for me, and this is the first time after a few years that I finally buckled down and bought one of these. And already the little bit that I've used it, I've decided, yes, it absolutely does the watering like I want it to, you know, just that whole concept of a traveling sprinkler, and it just feels so solid and nice, and so I'm pretty happy with this. I still have these, you know, and I'll use these until something happens, and the next time I need another one, I'll get another one of these. Now, let's go for some major advantages or disadvantages of going with this model versus maybe one of these. These ones here, Nelson and Orbit, they are more easily available at your local hardware store. They're likely to carry something like this, and depending on whether or not there's a sale, or you know, just if that store just happens to have generally higher or lower prices, you could probably find one of these as low as, say, $40. Usually it's going to be closer to, say, $50. This maybe they'll charge a little bit more. I don't know why, but you know, again, it's somewhere in that price range, starting around $50, depending. Websites maybe all the way up to $75, but they're all the same. It's the Nelson Rain Train or the Orbit. So that's the price range you're looking at. And you might think that's an awful lot for a sprinkler anyway. But again, if you've got the type of yard where it really doesn't fit to install some sort of underground pipe sprinkler system with pop-up heads and all that sort of stuff. And you need something that's going to be a little bit easier to use than moving one of these all around the yard several times every evening. It may be well worth the price of investing in one of these. Now this one, because it's just made better with more expensive parts, this one actually cost me $162. And you might think, whoa, that's a lot. But for me, again, this is the matter of, I like what it does, I want to keep doing that, and I don't want to have maintenance issues. And I think this is going to last for so many years that investment of $162 is going to pay off in the long run, and it's just going to be that much simpler to use this. This one, I haven't been able to find this at the local hardware store or the national big box chain stores. I bought this directly from nationalwalkingsprinkler.com, and they had a slightly smaller model in this, and it was sold out. And I thought, that's fine, I'll just get this one. Also, there is an option. You could save $10 if you got this same model with, instead of this main gear made of steel like it is here, you can get it made out of kind of a hard plastic, nylon plastic. It's only a $10 difference, so I thought, I'll just get this. But if you did get the plastic one and something went wrong with that part, again, that would be a pretty easy thing to order from them and replace that part. You'd have to undo a few bolts and Allen screws and a few things to get to it, but it's certainly doable. Now there is these ones with the plastic parts are basically maintenance free as long as nothing breaks. This one here, you're going to want to lubricate it from time to time. They recommend about once a month. And you can see right here on the main body that there are a couple places right here where it looks like you can just put a few drops of oil in there from time to time. And then back here on this main axle back here, there's another hole that's pretty obvious that's where you can put some oil. You can also just apply the grease to this main gear right there because it's completely open. And as long as you're doing that, you should be fine. Again, it might be a little susceptible to damage if you were to drop it. So, but again, it's pretty tough. You'd have to drop it, from 2 or 3 feet up onto a very hard surface. If you're just carrying it around, a foot or two off the ground and you drop it onto the grass, I think it will be just fine. So a couple other notes on this. When you first get it, there's just a little bit of, some assembly required. These spray arms are not attached when you first get it. So it's pretty easy. They're just threaded on there. You just thread the end in here, and it actually came with a little tool that I could use to tighten that up, or just any adjustable wrench could do that as well. And also it has a little marking here to show you that this is the top of the spray arm when it's fully assembled. See, the spray arm can tilt a little bit, and that's good. That's a way to adjust the coverage as it goes. If these were on the wrong direction, then the spinning would be the wrong direction. And if this is spinning in the wrong direction, then the forward movement just won't work. These little things will be dragged across the wheels, but they won't cause the momentum you want. So that's why it's very simple. You just look for the word top, make sure that's on the top, and then it will spin the correct direction. The correct direction being, if you're looking straight down on it, it would be a clockwise rotation. So I tend to like to aim these so that the spray is horizontal, pretty much straight out. And that's how I like it. Then I get good coverage and a good speed on that. You could tilt them upward, and as you tilt them upward, the water will spray out farther, and it will run slightly slower that way. But you can play with that and adjust it as you will, and see what works best for you. You don't want to aim them downward, because that's going to just dig into your lawn very close to the sprinkler, and you don't want water jetted down into the lawn. So either just horizontal or slightly upward, and you'll get good results there. There's also a way for this to, right now from the factory it comes in a low speed mode. There's just a couple of bolts here on each side. If you take the bolt out and move it to the next farthest location outward from where it is that way, then that's going to cause, when this is rotating, and this main gear is going, it's going to cause these little brackets to move farther with each rotation of this gear, and so that's going to cause these wheels to spin a little bit faster as it's going, even though this is going the same speed this rotation here. So you have the ability to adjust that, but like I said, I like the way that it came from the factory. Now, if you want to, you can have this run and have this spin and purposely disable the forward movement. I don't know why you'd want to do that exactly, because that would mean the water is spraying out. You'd have this kind of circle of irrigation and it would kind of be dry in the middle. But if you wanted to do that, all you have to do is flip these pawls up like that. And now, as this spins, and as this main gear down here is rotating, it's not going to cause these wheels to move. So you have that option if you want it. The other thing about when you first get this, okay, you put the arms on, and then this one came with just a little piece of rubber hose that attaches down here on the bottom. There's a little plastic piece here, and this hose fits over that, and you just tighten this clamp down. Just be mindful when you're tightening this clamp down that you want to kind of keep it out of the way, because the hose that's going to be underneath this is going to run right under there. So if the clamp is sticking out too far going down from the sprinkler, then it's going to rub against that hose. So I just place the clamp accordingly, tighten it down, and that's it. And it's just a hose connection there, and you're ready to go.